was still messy with the fairy dust. Tinker Bell, he called softly, after making sure that the children were asleep. Hey, where are you? She was in a jug for the moment and liking it extremely. She had never been in a jug before. Oh, do come out of that jug and tell me, do you know where they put my shadow? The loveliest tinker, as of golden bells, answered him. It is the fairy language. You ordinary children can never hear it. But if you were to hear it, you would know that you had heard it once before. Tink said that the shadow was in the big box. She meant the chest of drawers, and Peter jumped at the drawers, scattering their contents to the floor with both hands. In a moment, he had recovered his shadow, and in his delight, he forgot that he had shut Tinker Bell up in the drawer. Thank you. The Selfish Giant. Every afternoon, as they were coming from school, the children used to go and play in the giant's garden. It was a large, lovely garden with soft green grass. Here and there over the grass stood beautiful flowers like stars. And there were 12 peach trees that in the springtime broke out into delicate blossoms of pink and pearl. And in the autumn bore rich fruit. The birds sat on the trees and sang so sweetly that the children used to stop their games in order to listen to them. How happy we are here! They cried to each other. One day the giant came back. He had been to with his friend Cornish Ogre and had stayed with him for 7 years. When he arrived, he saw the children playing in the garden. "What are you doing here?" he cried in a very gruff voice. And the children ran away. "My own garden is my own garden," said the giant. "Anyone can understand that, and I will allow nobody to play in it but myself." So he built a high wall all around it and put up a notice board saying, he was a very selfish giant. The poor children had now nowhere to play. They tried to play on the road, but the road was very dusty and full of hard stones, and they did not like it. Then the spring came, and all over the country there were little blossoms and little birds. Only in the garden of the selfish giant it was still winter. The birds did not care to sing in it, as there were no children, and the trees forgot to blossom. Once a beautiful flower puts its head out from the grass, but when it saw the notice board, it was so sorry for the children that it slipped back into the ground again and went off to sleep. The only ones who were pleased were the snow and the frost. Spring has forgotten this garden, they cried. So we will live here all the year round. The snow covered up the grass with her great white cloak, and the frost painted all the trees silver. Then they invited the north wind to stay with them, and he came. He was wrapped in furs, and he rode all the day about the garden and blew the chimney pots down. This is a delightful spot, he said.
We must ask the hail on a visit.
So the hail came every day for 3 hours. He rattled on the roof of the castle till he broke most of the slates. And then he ran round and round the garden as fast as he could go. He was dressed in grey, and his breath was like ice. I cannot understand why the spring is so late in coming, said the selfish giant. As he sat at the window and looked out of his white garden, I hope there will be a change in the weather. But the spring never came, nor the summer. The autumn gave golden fruits to every garden, but to the giant's garden she gave none. He is too selfish, she said. So it was always winter there, and the north wind, and the hail, and the frost, and the snow danced about the trees. Thank you.
Namaste. We, the student of grade 7, will read the chapter The MCC by R.K. Narayan. Let's read a story about a cricket club with a difference. The story is set in the fictional town of Malgudi. It is a story about 3 friends who are part of the Malgudi Cricket Club, or the MCC. The MCC originally stood for the Marylebone Cricket Club of London, a very significant club which was founded in 1787 and made cricket laws until 1969. Let us read and find out what happens when Swami and his friends decide to buy cricket gear for their team. The 3 friends sat around Rajam's tables in his room. Mani held before him a catalogue of Messrs. Binns, the shop for sports goods. He read, Junior Willard bats, 7/8, made of the finest seasoned wood, used by Cambridge Junior Boys 11. Let me have a look at it, said Rajam. He bent over the table and said, Seems to be a fine bat. Have a look at it, Swami. Swami Nathan craned his neck and agreed that it was a fine bat. But he was indiscreet enough to say, It looks like any other bat in the catalogue. Mani's left hand shot out, held his neck and pressed his face close to the picture of the bat. Why do you pretend to be a cricket player if you cannot see the difference between Junior Willard and other bats? You are not fit to be in our team. After this admonition, the hold was relaxed. Rajam asked, Swami, do you know what the catalogue man calls the Junior Willard? It seems it is the Rolls Royce amongst the junior bats. Don't you know the difference between the Rolls Royce and other cars? Swami Nathan replied haughtily. I never said I saw no difference between the Rolls Royce and other cars. What is the difference? Urged Rajam. Mani laughed and teased. Come on, if you really know the difference, why don't you say it? The Rolls costs a lakh of rupees, while other cars cost about 10,000. A Rolls has engines made of silver, while other cars have iron engines. Oh, jeered Rajam. Thank you.
Grandfather and the Python by Ruskin Bond. Grandmother was tolerant of most birds and animals, but she drew the line at reptiles. She said they made her blood run cold. Even a handsome, sweet-tempered chameleon had to be given up. Grandfather should have known that there was little chance of his being allowed to keep the python. It was about 4 feet long, a young one, when grandfather bought it from a snake charmer for 6 rupees, impressing the bazaar crowd by slinging it across his shoulders and walking home with it. Grandmother nearly fainted at the sight of the python curled around grandfather's throat.
You'll be strangled, she cried. Get rid of it at once.
Nonsense, said grandfather. He's only a young fellow. He'll soon get used to us.
Will he? Indeed, said grandmother. But I have no intention of getting used to him. You know quite well that your cousin Mabel is coming to stay with us tomorrow. She'll leave us the minute she knows there's a snake in the house.
Well, perhaps we ought to show it to her as soon as she arrives, said grandfather, who did not look forward to fussy Aunt Mabel visit any more than I did.
You'll do no such thing, said grandmother.
Well, I can't let it loose in the garden, said grandfather with an innocent expression. It might find its way into the poultry house, and there where would we be?
How exasperating you are, grumbled grandmother. Lock the creature in the bathroom. Go back to the bazaar and find the man you bought it from and get him to come and take it back.
In my austere presence, grandfather had to take the python into the bathroom, where he placed it in a steep-sided tin tub. Then he hurried off to the bazaar to look for the snake charmer, while grandmother paced anxiously up and down the veranda. When he returned looking crestfallen, we knew he hadn't been able to find the man. Thank you.
Bonku Babu's Friend by Satyajit Ray. Everyone turned their attention to their cups of tea. There did not seem to be anything left to be said. After a few moments of silence, Bonku Babu cleared his throat and said gently, Suppose they came here. Nidu Babu feigned total amazement. Hey, Pankam wants to say something. What did you say, Pankam? Who's going to come here? Where from? Bonku Babu repeated his words, his tone still gentle. Suppose someone from a different planet came here. As he did so often, Bhairav Chakravarti slapped Bonku Babu's back loudly and rudely. grinned and said, "Bravo! What a thing to say! Where is a creature from another planet going to land? Not Moscow, not London, not New York, not even Calcutta, but here in Kankurgachi. You do think big, Bunkum, don't you?" Bonku Babu felt silent, but several questions rose in his mind. Was it really impossible? If an alien had to visit the Earth, would it really matter where it arrived first? It might not aim to go straight to any other part of the world. Alright, it was highly unlikely that such a thing would happen in Kankurgachi village. But who was to say for sure that it could not happen at all? Shripati Babu was silent so far. Now, as he shifted in his seat, everyone looked at him. He put his cup down and spoke knowledgeably. "Look, if someone from a different planet does come to Earth, I can assure you that he will not come to this God-forsaken place. Those aliens are no fools. It is my belief that they are sahibs, and they will land in some western country where all the sahibs live. Understand?" Everyone agreed, with the sole exception of Bonku Babu. Chandi Babu decided to take things a bit further. He nudged Nidhu Babu silently, pointed at Bonku Babu, and spoke innocently. "Why?
I think Bonku is quite right. Isn't
It
it
is
natural
that aliens should want to come to a place where there is a man like our Bonku Bihari? If they wanted to take away a human specimen, could they find anything better? No.
I don't think so. Nidhu Babu joined in.
Consider his looks, not to mention his brains. Yes, Bunkum would be the ideal specimen. Right, suitable for keeping in a museum or a zoo. Ram Kanai chipped in. Thank you.